At the outset, thank you so much, Dr. Manchu Mehta sir, for this opportunity. Hot Sunday afternoon. Nobody can go out. Great time for learning. Most part of India is hot and dusty at this moment. So the topic that has been given to me is the most feared nightmare, refractive surprise. And the reason I chose this photograph for my first slide, when the fictional character you thought was dead was alive this whole time. So what that means really is that 10,000 surgeries, 15,000 surgeries, 20,000 surgeries you would be doing, and you will never get a refractive surprise. So you'll think that probably it just doesn't exist, or it's not going to happen to me. But it's been alive this whole time, and it does happen. And when it does happen, you have to be prepared for it. So today's cataract surgery is like the game of the past. You get one chance to hit it right. Or do we? With the advancement in technology, it is now possible that even if we go wrong with a refractive surprise, if with our surgery and we cause a refractive surprise, we can still correct it. There are multiple methods to correct it. So first of all, we need to understand where this refractive surprise is coming from. So the sources of error can be error in planning, error in measurement, and error in execution. So we need to go to the drawing board and need to find out where this error has come from. Act like a detective, start from the very beginning, because if you can detect where the error has come from, it will go a long way into having a chance of managing that refractive error correctly. So what went wrong? The first and foremost thing, as Sir mentioned in his introduction as well, is patient selection. You need to see the psyche of the patient. You need to see the expectations of the patient. You need to find out what the patient is wanting from you, and then decide on the type of IOL that you're going to choose for that patient. Sometimes it's not even a refractive surprise of that magnitude, and still the patient is unhappy. And sometimes you could have a refractive surprise of, say, a -1 or a -1.5, and the patient still does not complain. So patient selection preoperatively is of umpteenth importance. So what is it that we do wrong these days? What we do wrong these days is we counsel our patients, you'll be 6, 6, and 6. Patient has been, juggling around with his glasses all through his life, especially at the age when he gets a cataract in his late 40s, early 50s, or, in his 60s. He's having a constant change in the number of spectacles. So we advise that we'll implant a multifocal lens in your eye and everything is going to be all right. So this is where we oversell ourselves. We tell the patient we are going to make you spectacle free. Now, over time, all doctors have realized this is not what you're supposed to say to a patient. You're supposed to say that we are going to decrease your dependency on spectacles, not make you spectacle free. If you say that you're going to make him spectacle free and then later on something goes wrong and the patient gets spectacles, that is the time that the patient is going to sit on your head. What is there in the patient's mind these days is you spend money and you can attain spectacle freedom. We know that's not the truth. Every individual's eye is different. Money cannot buy you spectacle freedom. Your eye has to be in sync. All your optical mediums have to be correct. Only then spectacle freedom can be obtained, and that too for 90% of the time of the day. Probably still, even if everything is absolutely right, you will still need glasses for maybe 10% of the time. So you need to analyze your patient mindset. Patient wants spectacle freedom versus a post-op vision goal, quality of vision, and is ready to pay a premium. Now it's up to you how you analyze this. First of all, you need to know why that patient wants spectacle freedom. What is the age of the patient is need to be taken into consideration. Occupation, the hobby, activities, whether distance, intermediate, or near vision is required more often of the time. Utilitarian versus immaculate vision of ocular health. A level post-op outcome, provide practical everyday experience to the patient, explain the possibilities that if I implant an X lens, then this is going to happen. If I implant a Y lens, then this is going to happen. So you make sure you tell him about his day-to-day activities. And we know nowadays day-to-day activities have become pretty limited as they weren't earlier. Now they've got very limited to our mobile phone and our laptops. So we need to counsel our patients according to that. So what are the patient expectations? Patient says, I can see better far, but I can't still, read. I can't read the headlines. I can read, but I need glasses to drive or watch TV. Why do I need glasses if I have a lens implant in my eye already? Why is it that my neighbor who had a cataract surgery can go around without glasses since the operation? Why can't I? I want the same thing. And knowledge explosion. This has again happened in the last 10 years. Again, everybody has a smartphone, everybody has access to Google. I saw this on TV, I read it somewhere, I read it on the internet. So every patient thinks that they know more than the doctor does, and then they expect out of you. Most important thing when you do pre-operatively, that has been found, there are multiple studies that have been done, that if a patient is suffering from a dry eye pre-operatively and we operate the patient for a cataract, the patient will be unhappy. A refractive surprise can also occur because of a dry eye and an unstable tear film. So doing a 2-minute OSDI form analysis of the patient will do no harm. We can do a T-BUT test also. We can do a Schirmer's just to make sure that there is no dry eye. If there is dry eye, then you treat it before you go ahead with surgery and then go ahead with your surgery. If you have the availability of this tool really helps in avoiding refractive surprises. It's the eye trace. So how this helps is that it tells you the aberrations of the eye separately from the cornea as well as from your lens. It tells you different aberrations, whether that is coming from the cornea or from the lens. So in this case, all the aberrations are coming from your inside the eye, that is from inside the lens. Your cornea is absolutely clean. So this sort of a patient is a perfect candidate for a premium IOL, because the moment you will remove that cataract and you will implant the lens, the aberrations of the eye will be gone because they don't exist in the cornea. Now, flip side of it, if a patient has pre-existing aberrations present on the cornea and we go ahead and implant a premium IOL, the patient will still be unhappy because those aberrations of the cornea have not been treated. They have stayed the same despite your all your efforts, your perfect surgery. Because you did not touch the cornea, those aberrations remained intact. So these sort of patients are not good candidates for premium IOLs, because the patient will pay you a premium and then expect that everything should be absolutely perfect. This leads to unhappy patients. Patients might have blurry vision, and of course, the dreaded halos and glare. Precision and accuracy is everything. It's important to be precise in your biometry. Biometry, as we know, is measuring various dimensions of the eye, its components, and their interrelationships, using this data to determine the ideal intraocular lens path. Now, why is it important to get the biometry right? Now, the attention should be on this slide. This is, I think, the most important slide here. So this is a study that was published in the British Journal of Ophthalmology in 2010. It says that claims relating to biometric errors, wrong intraocular lens power, were the second most frequent cause of claims and results in payments of damages in 62% of closed cases in the UK. Which means if your biometry is wrong and the patient takes you to court, you have very little chance that you will come out scot-free. So get your biometry right. Make sure that you have documented everything properly. Despite if your biometry documentation is there, despite that, if there is a refractive error, of course, the patient will be unhappy, but your chances in litigation become much higher of succeeding. So errors in measurement can come very simply if the chin is not placed correctly, if there is a head tilt. So here we see same patient, different head tilt, and we get 3 different readings. In these 3 different readings, there is a difference of 1 diopter in magnitude and 10 degrees in axis, which will make your post-op refraction go haywire. So we need to make sure that there is no head tilt when we're doing these readings. Trained person should be doing these scans. If you're not doing it yourself, a person who has experience over the years, so that this sort of a problem, can be taken care of. In most centers now, what we have started using is we have started taking readings from multiple devices. So we used to take readings from a manual keratometer earlier. Then we take readings from our biometers. Now biometers have come in different principles. You have the Lenstar, which is the Alcor, the IOL Master, which is now in fact the 700 has come with the SD-OCT. So you have different measurements that take, and all these devices, believe you me, if you take your measurements On all these devices, the same patient within 5 minutes, all of them will give you a different value. They will give you a different K reading. So how do you know that which one is the correct one? Are all machines the same? So to get this error out of the way, Barrett has come up with this freely available formula. Here, what happens is that you can enter your whatever topographer or biometer that you have used, you can enter these values here in this calculator, and you can get an integrated K. The integrated K will take into consideration all the values that you have entered. And if you use these values, it has been documented that you will hit the nail on the head. Okay, so if a patient has a normal unoperated cornea, an optical biometer will work. An optimal biometer will do just fine. The problem comes when a patient who has been operated for a refractive surgery before, they come in for a cataract surgery, the optical biometer will not be able to give you the correct value. So how do you manage that? You basically go to, again, an online free using ASCRS online calculator. You choose whether the patient has undergone a prior myopic, a prior hyperopic, or a prior RK procedure. Once you have chosen that, then you get all these. Can I take more time, please? If it's not a problem, I have a few slides left. Can I take some more time?
Yeah, 2 minutes, just wind up. Yes.
Sure.
We have enough time, don't worry.
Right. So you have this calculator, you can enter the values on this calculator. Again, it asks you for a lot of values. You might not have all these machines at your center. The more values you put into this, the more accurate your IOL calculation will become. But that said, whatever values you have, whatever values you enter, you will still get a pretty good accurate lens power. So, or if you have a pentacam, you can enter this mean zone, the EKT that is there, into these Atlas rings. Then you can take the ERF, the ISIS, the ERP values from, your pentacam itself. The optical biometer can be used to enter the values of the axial length, the ACD, the lens thickness, and the white to white. Once you get these values, the calculator will use an array of formulas, and it will be able to give you an average IOL power, minimum, maximum. Mostly you use the average power. But for example, in an RK, you know that there's going to be a hyperopic shift. So you would probably want to use the most myopic number that's available. Okay, so few commercially available lenses that have a positive asphericity, zero asphericity, and a negative asphericity. This is again very useful in avoiding getting a post-refractive error, a refractive surprise. So if you have a patient who has a prior hyperopic LASIK, you would go ahead and put a positive aspheric lens. If there's a centered previous myopic LASIK, then you would go ahead and implant a negative aspheric lens. Whereas if patient has weak zonules, a decentered aberration, you feel that the lens can shift or tilt, you would put a zero asphericity lens. So once this has happened, you need to don the hand and you need to become Dr. Fix-It. Checklist in cases of IOL surprises: correct lens has been inserted and it has not been interchanged. Make sure that the right data was put in the formula. Half a diopter is not uncommon, but if there is 3 to 4 diopters difference, then check the data along with the A constant of the lens. Check if the lens has been placed upside down. A capsular block can cause forward movement of the lens and a myopic shift. Always check the status of the contralateral eye before making your decision to do what management are you going to do to correct the refractive surprise. Solutions include glasses, contact lenses, piggyback IOLs, laser refractive surgery, or surface procedures, and IOL exchange. So this is a table wherein it tells you that according to the refractive error that is present and the time elapsed from the surgery, what is the preferred surgical technique that should be used to correct the refractive error that has happened. Also, in now considering astigmatism, there are lots of toric IOLs that are being implanted. Again, for example, if you see here, if I'm making my incision at 180 degrees, there's a simple technique. You can see in the middle where the circle comes, it's giving me with the ZCT 450, which is the lens model, a residual error of 0.25, and with the 400, a residual error of 0.59. Now, if I just simply change my incision side to a 220 degree, so I'll be sitting basically a little more superior temporally, you see that the complete calculation changes. The calculator tries and gives you as the ZCT 525, and a residual cylinder becomes just minus 0.01. So simply changing your position can actually help you in decreasing your post-op. Till now, we've spoken about if there is a refractive error or a residual refractive error in the spherical part. What if astigmatism is left behind? You have put in a toric lens and it has rotated. So how do you align it back to where you would be able to achieve the maximum refractive stability for the patient? So once a patient comes to you with uh, a rotated IOL, whether it has been operated elsewhere or it has been operated by you, the first thing is you do not go in immediately to realign the IOL. You need to wait for at least 7 days. The reason being, you need to give the lens time. It is possible that there is retained visco behind, or there is a capsular distension syndrome, or there is a capsular contraction syndrome, and the IOL actually might rotate again back into the position wherein the patient becomes happy. So in the other IC, in fact, we were just discussing, it happens that on occasion you want to rotate the IOL, but the patient is happy. You see that the IOL has gone off by 20 degrees, but the patient says, well, I'm seeing fine. There's no you think that it has got rotated. It all depends upon the patient. If the patient is unhappy, then you go ahead and you realign the toric IOL. So there's a simple way of seeing how much the IOL is supposed to be rotated in order to realign it. Online free calculator called astigmatismfix.com. You go, you enter all the data that is present with you. The current refraction, again, very important. What is the current refraction of the patient also has to be entered. And you have to also enter that how much time has passed after surgery. So this calculator has an algorithm which takes all these things into account. And it beautifully tells you, like it's here in the right bottom right corner, that rotating the toric, in this particular case, the values that you have entered, that rotating the toric IOL 162 degrees clockwise would minimize this astigmatism. The ideal toric lens would correct an X amount of astigmatism at 148 degrees. So you don't have to break your head that how much do I have to rotate? Should I rotate it to the left? Should I rotate it to the right? 20 degrees is off. Which way, clockwise, anti-clockwise. This calculator will be able to tell you. So a simple video that I made to show you how this calculator can be used. You enter the details of the patient, you enter the eye, the lens model that you have implanted, that is supposed to be entered. Once the name has been entered, the eye has been chosen, then you go ahead and choose what type of lens was implanted into the eye. Then at the bottom here, you have all sorts of lenses. They have incorporated all lenses that are there available in the market into this calculator. Then you put what is the cylindrical power at the corneal plane, which you got from your K readings. Then you put the cylinder power at the corneal plane, which is now post-operatively because of your incisions that has changed. Once what you've entered, what is the current IOL axis and what is the spherical, current IOL spherical equivalent. Then what was the originally calculated axis? So how much off you've gone by. Then the current refraction, as I said, you're supposed to be giving what exactly is the current refraction in sphere as well as in cylinder. Then how much time has it been since the surgery has passed? What is the uncorrected Snell's visual acuity and what is the best corrected? And you just click calculate. The moment you click calculate, it has its own algorithm and it will tell you how much you need to rotate it by to get least amount of astigmatism to remain in the eye post the rotation has happened. It beautifully tells you about a graph, also the baseline alignment as well as the astigmatism. So I just, to sum it up, would say that keep calm and don't get disappointed. Refractive surprises may happen, but the good thing is that most often than not, you'll be able to treat those refractive surprises. And most often than not, patients are happy. If it's the first eye, you can always do a monovision in the other eye. That actually could, do wonders for both distance and near vision. And sometimes the questions are complicated and the answers are simple. So